I jolted awake to the sound of metal screeching from the yard, like someone was twisting a water valve with all their might. In Sunview Meadows, Arizona, mornings are usually so quiet I can hear birds perched on the fence. "What now?" I muttered, rubbing my eyes, thinking it must be the neighborhood's pipe maintenance crew working early, but the clock on the nightstand showed just shy of 7. Who'd be fixing pipes when the air's still misty? I pulled on a t-shirt, shuffled to the door, my mind still foggy. I'm Ethan Caldwell, a retired mechanical engineer who cashed out early from selling a modest invention. I came to Sunview Meadows for a peaceful life, tending to my backyard vegetable and flower garden, where I rediscovered joy after losing my wife, who taught me to love every leaf. This neighborhood's like a brochure, identical houses, lawns trimmed like they're measured with a ruler, and Homeowners Association HOA signs posted everywhere, reminding me not to leave trash cans out or paint my door the wrong color. I try to avoid trouble, but Pamela Whitaker, the HOA president with her fake smile, always gets under my skin. She once sent me a fine for letting a pot of daisies encroach on the common walkway. The common walkway, really? Before diving into the story, comment where you're watching from and don't forget to subscribe so you never miss the latest video. I opened the back door, intending to check the garden. My garden, with its tomatoes, cucumbers, and daisies, was my entire world. I stretched, took a deep breath of Arizona's dry air, and reached to turn on the sprinkler. Nothing, not a single drop. "What the hell?" I muttered, twisting the valve harder. Still silent. I ran to the water meter in the yard, heart pounding. The needle stood still, mocking me. I rushed inside, turned on the kitchen faucet. Nothing. The bathroom faucet. Nothing. The pipes groaned dryly, laughing in my face. I stood in the kitchen, hands trembling, mind reeling. No water? In Arizona, where the land is parched and my garden is all I have. I ran to the front door, nearly tripping, and saw a white envelope tucked under the slot. The HOA logo glared at me, with Pamela's rigid handwriting. I tore it open, scanning it. "Mr. Ethan Caldwell, due to a violation of watering hours, your water supply has been shut off per clause 7.2. B's, pay a $200 fine to restore." I read it again, unbelieving. Watering out of hours? I watered at the damn right time. I shouted, though no one heard. I looked at the garden through the window. The tomatoes were starting to wilt, the daisies drooping under the sun. Anger surged, like it wanted to burn me alive. Pamela Whitaker, with her way of ruling Sunview Meadows like a queen, had crossed the line. Cutting off my water, without warning, over some petty rule. I pictured her, with that smug smile, standing somewhere laughing at my helplessness. "Oh Ethan, did you oversleep?" I heard her voice in my head, mocking like when I'd argued about the fence paint rules. I gripped the letter, wanting to rip it apart. This wasn't just about water, this was my garden, tended for years, a memory of my wife, the place I found myself again. Pamela thought she could trample it all with a shut-off valve. I stepped into the yard, staring at the thirsty rows of vegetables, my blood boiling. "You want to play, Pamela?" I muttered, eyes narrowing. "Fine, but I won't let you win." I turned back inside, my mind starting to plot revenge. If she wanted war, I'd give her one to remember. I stood in the kitchen, the crumpled HOA letter in my hand, my head still spinning from the water shutoff. The anger made me restless. I stuffed the letter into my pocket, grabbed my jacket, and stormed out. If Pamela Whitaker thought she could cut my water without consequences, she was dead wrong. I marched through Sunview Meadows, where identical beige houses stood silent under the sun, as if they too feared upsetting the HOA queen. Pamela's house was at the street's end, gaudy with a flashy garden lamp, and an HOA president sign by the door. Just looking at it irritated me. I knocked, trying to stay calm, but my hand clenched into a fist. The door opened, and there was Pamela, with that fake smile I'd seen 100 times at HOA meetings. She wore a cashmere sweater, hair curled perfectly, like she'd stepped out of a home decor magazine. "Oh Ethan, it's you?" she said, her voice sweet but sharp as a blade. "Something wrong so early?" I didn't beat around the bush. "Pamela, what's going on? Why's my water cut off?" I pulled out the letter, holding it up. Watering out of hours? I watered at your damn approved time. Pamela tilted her head, her smile unshaken. Oh Ethan, calm down. You must have overslept your clock, right? She crossed her arms, looking at me like a naughty child. We had reports you watered after 8. Rules are rules, you should know that. Reports? I nearly shouted. Who reported? I watered at 7 in the morning. You can't just cut my water like that. My blood boiled. I pictured my garden wilting at home, the tomatoes I'd nurtured for months, the daisies my wife loved, now parched, because of her power games. Pamela laughed, a condescending chuckle that made me want to punch the wall. Ethan, don't make a scene, it's just temporary. Pay the $200 fine, sign the agreement, and water's back. Simple. She waved her hand, like shooing a fly. By the way, mow your lawn, it's longer than HOA standards. I took a deep breath, trying not to let anger take over. You've got no right, Pamela. No warning, no inspection. This is my home, not your playground. Her smile stiffened, her eyes turning cold. Oh, I have the right, Ethan. Per HOA rules, any violation can be addressed immediately. And guess what? The board agreed your house is a problem. She stepped closer, voice lowering. You're lucky I only cut the water. Next time it could be worse, like a lien for an unstandard lawn. I froze. A lien? She was threatening me, right at her doorstep, like I was her puppet. I glanced inside, spotting a shiny new SUV in her garage, a chandelier sparkling through the window. How does an HOA president afford that? Suspicion flickered, but before I could think, Pamela went on. Look, Ethan, I'm hosting a fundraiser for the community park this week. Play nice, and I might waive the fine. If not, she shrugged, her smile back, sharp as a knife. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. I clenched my fists, nails digging into my palms. You won't win forever, Pamela, I growled, turning away before anger made me do something stupid. Her laughter echoed behind me, like a challenge. Back home, I stared at the garden. Tomatoes wilted, daisies faded. Pamela didn't just cut the water, she attacked what I cherished most. I closed my eyes, picturing her smug smile. No, I wouldn't pay the fine. I wouldn't bow. Pamela wanted war. I'd show her I wasn't easily broken. I went inside, my mind plotting. This game had just begun. I slammed the door, the sound drowning out Pamela Whitaker's smug laugh in my head. The house was silent, just the ceiling fan humming, but I felt like my blood was boiling. No water, in Sunview Meadows, Arizona, where the sun scorches everything and my backyard garden is my world. Pamela turned my life into a nightmare with one shut-off valve. I stood in the kitchen, staring at the crumpled HOA letter on the table, wanting to shred it, but knowing that wouldn't fix anything. I tried the kitchen faucet again, hoping it was a prank. Still dry. I ran to the garden, seeing the tomatoes wilt, the daisies drooping like they were begging for help. This garden, my wife's memory, where I poured my heart, was dying because of Pamela's tyranny. I called the water company, but they parroted like robots. Per HOA request, your water is shut off. Contact President Pamela Whitaker. I threw the phone onto the couch, yelling alone, she thinks she's God. With no other choice, I drove to the supermarket, buying jugs of bottled water. On the way back, neighbors avoided my eyes, like I was contagious. In Sunview Meadows, no one dares cross Pamela. I remembered her fining the old lady down the street for leaving her grandkid's bike out too long. Now it's my turn, and no one speaks up. At home, I poured bottled water into the coffee maker, feeling like a desert survivor. Every drop reminded me Pamela controlled my life. I sat down, opening the neighborhood's next-door chat, hoping for sympathy. Instead, I saw Pamela's post bragging about her park fundraiser, with a photo of her next to a gaudy sign. "Let's make Sunview Meadows better," she wrote. Better. When she cut my water over a fabricated excuse, I texted Nate Rivera, one of the few here unafraid of Pamela. Nate used to work for the water company, and got fined last year for leaving trash cans out, ruining aesthetics. If anyone understood, it was him. My phone buzzed. Nate replied instantly. "What's urgent, Ethan? Pamela targeting you again." "She cut my water, Nate," I nearly shouted into the phone. "Said I watered out of hours, then locked the valve. No warning, nothing." Nate sighed. "Sounds like her style. Pamela doesn't just want control, she wants everyone to know she's in charge. But listen, Ethan, I bet this isn't simple. She's hiding something. Hiding? I frowned, gripping the phone. What do you mean? Nate lowered his voice. That park project? The HOA should have rented a proper venue, but Pamela insists on doing it here. I heard she's blown the HOA budget on personal stuff, like that new SUV. Cutting your water might be a distraction. I froze. New SUV, sparkling chandelier in Pamela's house. I saw them today. How does an HOA president afford that? You sure, Nate? No proof yet, Nate said, but I know there's an old wastewater tank near the neighborhood, from before modern sewers. If you want to teach her a lesson, I can help. Wastewater tank. The idea hit me, so bold I almost laughed. Reroute dirty water to Pamela's house, let her taste invasion. I shook my head, telling myself I wasn't that crazy. But then I looked at the garden, tomatoes shriveled, daisies yellowing. Pamela didn't just take water, she took my joy, my memories, everything I valued. Let me think, Nate, I said, but a plan was forming in my mind. I stood, looking out the window. Somewhere, Pamela thought she'd won, but I'd show her I don't bow easily. If she wanted my garden dead, I'd make her pay, in a way she'd never forget. I sat in the living room, staring at the stack of water jugs on the table, still seething after talking to Nate. The wastewater tank idea lingered in my mind, daring enough to feel both insane and satisfying. But I knew I couldn't act alone, not when Pamela Whitaker ruled Sunview Meadows like a dictator queen. She cut my water, let my garden, my wife's memory, wither, and now flaunted her park fundraiser like the neighborhood's savior. I needed allies, someone who saw Pamela wasn't invincible. That night's HOA meeting was in the community hall, a stuffy room with plastic chairs and a follow the rules sign at the entrance. I almost didn't go, but Nate texted, "Watch Pamela perform. Might catch something useful." I sighed, put on a decent shirt, and dragged myself there, full of resentment. The hall was packed, neighbors whispering, but no one dared look at me, the guy Pamela targeted. I sat in the back, ignoring pitying glances. Pamela took the podium, silk dress shimmering, that smug smile unchanged from our confrontation. "Hello everyone," she said, voice sugary. "The park fundraiser will be a milestone for Sunview Meadows. We'll have a beautiful space, and I'm proud to lead it." The room clapped, but I wanted to yell, "Beautiful, when you cut my water for a lie." Suddenly, a voice cut through from the middle rows. "Excuse me, Miss Whitaker, I have a question." I looked up, seeing a petite woman stand, her eyes sharp. "How's the HOA budget being spent? I've heard the park project lacks transparency." The room went silent. Pamela froze, her smile stiffening. "Oh, you're?" Pamela asked, voice still sweet but tense. "Clara Nguyen, new resident," the woman replied. "I'm a former lawyer, and I'd like to see financial reports before contributing more." I nearly laughed. Someone challenging Pamela. Clara Nguyen, with her calm but cutting voice, was someone I wanted to high-five. Pamela mumbled about finances under review, but I saw her falter, a rare sight. After the meeting, I waited for Clara in the hallway, hoping she wouldn't think me weird. "Hi, I'm Ethan," I said. Awkward. "Heard you question Pamela. You're not scared of her?" Clara smiled, eyes mischievous. "Scared? I've faced worse than Pamela. She's just a control freak. I bet she's hiding something about the budget." I quickly shared my water shut-off story, the dying garden, Pamela's threats. Clara nodded, unsurprised. "She wants you to submit," she said. "But if you fight, you need proof. I'll check HOA rules for loopholes. You don't do anything dumb." Too late, I thought, recalling Nate's idea. But I just nodded, thanked Clara, and promised to stay in touch. At home, I called Nate. "You mentioned the wastewater tank," I asked. Heart racing. "How's it work?" Nate laughed over the phone. "Oh, you're serious now? Listen, it's been abandoned forever, but the pipes are intact. If you're clever, we can redirect water to Pamela's house. Imagine her fundraiser reeking." I chuckled, picturing Pamela screaming amid ruined furniture. But then I paused, wondering if I was going too far. "Is it legal, Nate? Legal?" Nate cleared his throat. "You know the answer, but Pamela played dirty first. Your call." I looked at the garden through the window. Tomatoes nearly dead, daisies yellowed. Pamela didn't just take water, she took my joy, my memories, everything I cherished. Clara might be right about legal fights, but I needed action now, to show Pamela I wasn't her doormat. All right, Nate, I said, voice firm. Tell me how. I hung up, blood pumping. Pamela thought she held all the cards? I'd show her how wrong she was. If she wanted my garden dead, I'd make her pay, in a way she'd never forget. I stood in the garage, fluorescent light casting shadows on the cluttered tools, wrenches, pipes, and the drill I hadn't touched since moving to Sunview Meadows. Nate's words about the wastewater tank echoed in my head, like a song I couldn't shake. Redirect dirty water to Pamela Whitaker's house, ruin her park fundraiser. The idea was both insane and perfect. I glanced through the window at my dying garden, tomatoes shriveled, daisies drooping like they blamed me. Pamela didn't just cut my water, she trampled my memories, my joy, everything I valued. If she wanted to play dirty, I'd play dirtier. I called Nate right after hanging up with Clara last night. You sure about that tank? I asked, trying to sound calm, despite my racing heart. Solid as a rock, Nate replied, excited. I worked on pipes nearby, when I was with the water company. Old tank, full of years-old wastewater, stinks like hell. Connect Pamela's house to it, and her fundraiser's a disaster. I laughed, imagining Pamela shrieking among guests, her pricey silk dress soaked in filth. But then I stopped. What if we get caught, Nate? Cops, fines, lawsuits. Nate hesitated. You know the risks, Ethan. But Pamela backed you into a corner. She deserves it. I nodded, though he couldn't see. Nate was right. Pamela left me no choice. I set a meetup for tonight, when the neighborhood slept, to start the plan. Now in the garage I checked my tools, both thrilled and nervous. I'm no plumber, but years as an engineer taught me enough about pipes. Except, this time I wasn't building machines, I was rigging a wastewater bomb. As night fell, Nate showed up at my house, hoodie on, tool bag in hand. Ready, warrior, he whispered, flashing a sly grin. Never readier, I replied, but my stomach churned. We sneaked to the alley behind the neighborhood, where the wastewater tank hid behind dry weeds. A faint stench made me grimace, but Nate just chuckled. This is mild. Wait till it floods Pamela's place. We knelt, flicking on small flashlights, and started digging around the pipe to Pamela's house. The shovel hit rocks, clinking loudly, each sound making me flinch. Easy, Nate, I hissed. Neighbors hear us, we're done. Chill, Nate said, but then he dropped a wrench, the metal clanging like an alarm. I froze, scanning around. A dog barked somewhere, but no lights came on. I exhaled, heart pounding. We kept going, sweat dripping despite the cold Arizona night. Nate showed me how to connect a new pipe to the tank, using a valve to control flow. When you're ready, just open it, he said. The wastewater does the rest. I nodded, hands shaking as I tightened the coupling, picturing Pamela at her fundraiser, bragging about the park, then screaming as filth poured in, almost made me smile. But then I thought of Clara, urging a legal fight. If she knew this, she'd probably sigh in disappointment. Sorry, Clara, I thought. Pamela doesn't deserve fair play. Mid-work, I heard footsteps. Nate, you hear that? I whispered, killing the flashlight. We ducked behind weeds, my heart thumping. A group of neighborhood teens, maybe 15, passed by, laughing loudly. Yo, this place stinks, one said. Like someone dumped trash. I held my breath, praying they didn't spot our dug-up dirt. Luckily, they moved on, oblivious. Close call, Nate muttered, chuckling. I glared, but couldn't help grinning. We finished, covering the pipe, ensuring no traces remained. Before leaving, Nate clapped my shoulder. You sure, Ethan? Once that valve opens, no going back. I looked toward Pamela's house, her garden lamp glowing like a taunt. Positive, I said. Voice steady. She wants my garden dead. I'll show her what losing feels like. Back home, I stared at the garden through the window. Tomatoes shriveled, daisies yellowed, but this time, I didn't feel helpless. Pamela thought she owned everything. She'd soon see how wrong she was. I closed my eyes, imagining her fundraiser turning to chaos. This game, I'd win. I woke with a weight on my chest, like someone was sitting on me. Last night, After leaving the wastewater tank with Nate, I barely slept. The wrench clanging, the teens' laughter, the faint stench from the pipe haunted me. What had I done? Rigging dirty water to Pamela Whitaker's house, to ruin her fundraiser. It felt thrilling yesterday, but now, in Arizona's sunlight, it seemed a dangerous gamble. If caught, it wasn't just fines. I could lose my home, my garden, everything I'd built to honor my wife. I pulled the curtains, staring at the garden. Tomatoes shriveled, daisies yellowed, reminding me why I did this. Pamela didn't just cut water, she trampled my memories, my joy, everything I valued. I sipped coffee, trying to shake the fear, when my phone buzzed. A next-door notification, the neighborhood chat I usually ignored. I opened it, and my heart nearly stopped. A post from Sunview teens, read, "Who was digging in the back alley last night? Smelled like a sewer. Maybe vandalism." Comments below, probably kids messing around. Each HOA should check. I gripped the phone, sweating. Those teens, did they see our dirt pile? The pipe we touched? I texted Nate. Saw the next door post. Teens know something. He replied fast, "Calm down, Ethan. They're guessing. Don't panic." But I couldn't relax. If Pamela saw this, she'd connect the dots. She knew I was angry, knew I wasn't the type to quietly pay fines. Before I could think, the doorbell rang. I jumped, spilling coffee on my shirt. Through the window, I saw Pamela in my yard, silk dress gleaming, arms crossed like she was about to lecture. I took a deep breath, opened the door, and kept my face neutral. "Pamela," I said. Voice stiff. New rule already. She squinted, her fake smile not hiding suspicion. "Ethan, I heard something odd. Someone digging near the back alley, right by the water system." "Know anything?" Blood drained from my face, but I shrugged, feigning surprise. "Back alley. I was home all night, Pamela. Probably kids." I met her eyes, praying she didn't see my trembling hands. Pamela tilted her head, voice sweet as poison. "Really? Because if someone's sabotaging, Ethan, I'll make sure they pay. The HOA doesn't tolerate it." She turned away, but not before glancing at my wilted garden with a mocking smile. "Fix that garden, Ethan. It looks pathetic." I shut the door, leaning against the wall, heart racing. Pamela suspected, but she had no proof, yet. I had to act fast, before she checked the tank. I called Clara Nguyen, the only one besides Nate I trusted. "Clara, I need help," I said. Mentioning the next-door post, but hiding the pipe plan. "Pamela's onto me." "Found anything on her?" Clara sighed over the phone. "I dug up old records, Ethan. Pamela was warned once for spending HOA funds on personal stuff, like home upgrades, decor. She covered it up. If you want to fight, I'll keep looking. But be careful, she's not dumb." I nodded, though she couldn't see. "Thanks, Clara, I'll handle it." I hung up, rage flaring. Pamela embezzling. Yet she cut my water, threatened liens over grass. I looked at the garden, daisies nearly dead. No, I couldn't wait for Clara's evidence. Pamela needed to taste defeat at her fundraiser. I texted Nate, "Check the pipe tonight. Gotta finish before the party." I stood, staring at the HOA letter. Pamela thought she owned Sunview Meadows. She'd soon learn how wrong she was. I stood in the dark backyard, clutching my phone, eyes fixed on the twinkling lights from Pamela Whitaker's house a few doors down. Her community park fundraiser was in full swing, laughter echoed, soft jazz played, and the smell of fancy food drifted through Sunview Meadows. I pictured Pamela, silk dress gleaming, gliding among guests, flaunting her queenly status. But tonight I'd turn her kingdom into a muddy mess. The wastewater pipe Nate and I secretly connected to the old tank was ready. One twist of the valve, and everything she'd built would collapse. I texted Nate one last time.
"In position."
"Ready?" he replied instantly. "Do it, Ethan. Teach her a lesson." I took a deep breath, feeling like my heart might leap out. I'd checked the pipe last night, ensured the valve worked, but now, standing here, I wavered. If caught, I could lose everything. House, garden, reputation. I glanced at my backyard garden, tomatoes shriveled, daisies dying because Pamela cut my water. No, she left me no choice. She wanted to crush my garden, my wife's memory. I'd make her taste defeat. I crept to the back alley, where the valve hid under weeds. Music from Pamela's house drowned out noise, but I still trembled as I knelt. I turned the valve, hearing a faint hiss as wastewater started moving. At first, nothing happened. I held my breath, thinking I'd messed up. Then a vile stench rose, like the whole neighborhood turned into a sewer. I stood, bolted to my yard, heart pounding. From my window, I saw Pamela's house glowing, guests still chatting, unaware of the disaster coming. Then it hit, a scream pierced the music. I glued my eyes to Pamela's window, watching dark stinking water spill across her living room floor, flooding the white shag carpet and expensive wooden table legs. Guests panicked, women hiked up dresses, fleeing to the lawn, men slipped in the muck. The chandelier flickered as wastewater sprayed, shorting the electrics. The speakers died, replaced by shouts.
"What's happening?"
Someone yelled. "What's that awful smell?" Another shrieked. Pamela rushed into the room, silk dress caked in mud, hair a mess. "Everyone, calm down," she screamed, but no one listened. I saw Lily, her daughter, frozen at the door, white dress now filthy, face red with shame. "Mom, what's going on?" Lily yelled, voice breaking. Pamela spun, trying to stay composed, but her eyes were wild. "It's just a glitch, sweetheart," she stammered, but guests were already pouring outside, phones up, recording. I stood in the shadows, unable to stop grinning. Wastewater kept flowing, ruining everything: buffet table, wall art, even the Sunview Meadows park sign Pamela set up to brag. One guest slipped in the mud, knocking over a tray of food with a crash. I saw HOA board members, once Pamela's cheerleaders, shake their heads and leave, faces full of disgust. I wanted to cheer, but I held back, knowing I wasn't safe yet. If anyone traced the pipe, I'd be in deep trouble. I slipped inside, heart still racing. Funny how Pamela stood amid the chaos, yelling into her phone for a plumber. But then I remembered my garden, tomatoes, daisies, things Pamela tried to kill. "This is what you get," I muttered, satisfaction mixed with worry. I texted Nate, "Done. Perfect disaster." He sent a laughing emoji, but I knew the game wasn't over. Pamela wouldn't let this slide. I glanced at her house, now dark from the power outage, only phone flashlights flickering. Lily stood on the lawn, covering her face, like she wanted to vanish. I felt a pang. Lily didn't deserve this, but then I recalled Pamela's threat to seize my home, her smirk when she called my garden pathetic. No, she earned it all. I went inside, closed the blinds, tried to stay calm. Pamela's party was a wreck, but I knew she'd come for revenge. I had to be ready, because if Pamela found out it was me, she'd turn Sunview Meadows into a battlefield. I stood in the kitchen, gripping a coffee mug, staring at Pamela Whitaker's house through the window. Last night, wastewater from the old tank turned her fundraiser into a disaster. Floors flooded, furniture ruined, guests scattering. Pamela's scream still rang in my head, but I didn't dare laugh out loud. I knew she wouldn't let it go. She'd suspected me since the next door post, and now, after this, I was a mouse under a cat's claws. But my wilted garden out back reminded me why I did it. Pamela cut my water, trampled my wife's memory, and I couldn't let her win. A loud knock startled me, spilling coffee. I took a deep breath, opened the door, and saw Pamela standing there, silk dress wrinkled, hair a mess, no trace of her HOA queen act. Her eyes blazed, like she wanted to burn me. "Ethan Caldwell," she screamed, jabbing a finger in my face. "You did this, didn't you? You ruined my party." I shrugged, keeping my face blank, though my heart pounded. "Ruined? Pamela, I was home all night. Maybe your sewer system's got issues." I stared her down, praying my voice didn't shake. "Don't play dumb," Pamela shouted, face red. "I know you're behind that filthy water. You'll pay, Ethan. I'll sue you, get you kicked out of Sunview Meadows." Neighbors peeked out, whispering. I saw Lily, her daughter, a few steps away, head down, dress still stained from last night. I took a deep breath, sensing an opening. "Sue me," I said, louder, so the street could hear. "You should look at yourself, Pamela. You cut my water, made up lies about watering hours, just to bully me into selling for your stupid park. But that's not all, is it?" Pamela froze, her fake smile gone. What are you talking about? She snapped, but her voice wavered. I stepped onto the lawn, blood pumping. You think I don't know? You've been stealing HOA money, Pamela. Funds meant for the park, you spent on your new car, chandelier, home upgrades, thought no one would notice. The street went silent. I saw Clara Nguyen nearby, nodding encouragement. She'd texted me this morning, confirming she'd found old receipts of Pamela's spending, not enough for a lawsuit, but enough for a scandal. I pressed on, voice steady. Ask Walter Brooks, he's got papers proving you misused funds 2 years ago. Pamela spun, face pale. That's a lie, she screamed, but no one bought it. I saw Walter, once fined by Pamela for parking an old car, step forward. I've got the receipts, Pamela, he said, voice shaky but firm. You spent $5,000 on decorations, called it community fees. Think we're blind? Lily suddenly spoke, eyes teary. Mom, is it true? She asked, voice breaking. You said the park was for the neighborhood. You said everything was honest. Lily, sweetheart, Pamela stammered, reaching for her, but Lily pulled away. You lied to me, the girl shouted, turning, tears streaming. Neighbors murmured, phones up, recording. I saw HOA board members, Pamela's former fans, shake their heads and leave. You humiliated yourself, Pamela, I said, voice calm, but sharp. You cut my water, threatened to seize my home, all to hide your scams. Now what? Who are you suing next? Pamela stood frozen, lips moving but silent. She looked around, saw neighbors' contempt, then glared at me, eyes blazing. You'll regret this, Ethan, she whispered, venomous, before turning away, muddy heels clicking. I stood there, heart still racing, but satisfaction surged. Pamela fell, not just from wastewater, but from the truth. Clara, Walter, and I exposed. Neighbors approached, some patting my shoulder, whispering thanks. I looked at my wilted garden, knowing I hadn't gotten water back, but this time I didn't feel powerless. Pamela thought she owned Sunview Meadows. She just lost her crown, and I yanked it off. I stood on the porch, staring at my wilted garden under Arizona's sun, still unsettled after confronting Pamela Whitaker. Last night, wastewater flooded her house, wrecking her party, and I exposed her HOA embezzlement to all of Sunview Meadows. Pamela's smug smile vanished, replaced by panic as neighbors turned away. But I knew the game wasn't over. She'd threatened to sue, and I still had no water, no way to save my garden, my wife's memory. I sipped coffee, bracing for what came next. This morning, a police car and a water company truck parked at Pamela's. I stood behind the blinds, heart pounding, thinking they were after me. If they traced the pipe Nate and I rigged to the tank, I'd be in serious trouble. But then Clara Nguyen called. Ethan, don't worry, she said, voice confident. I checked. The neighborhood's old wastewater system has a history of failures. No one can prove you did anything. But Pamela's under fire for HOA finances. I exhaled, but couldn't relax. She won't let it go, Clara, I said. She'll find a way to hit back. She's got no power left, Clara replied. The HOA's holding an emergency meeting tonight. They want to audit the books, and after last night, no one's on Pamela's side. I hung up, glancing outside. Neighbors gathered at Pamela's, whispering. I saw Lily, her daughter, alone, eyes red, clutching a bag like she was leaving. I felt guilty. Lily didn't deserve to be caught in the crossfire, but Pamela brought this on, cutting my water, threatening liens, stealing everyone's money. I couldn't let her keep going. That night's HOA meeting was packed like never before. I sat with Clara, Nate in the back, winking for support. Pamela didn't show, but a board member stood, voice shaky. We've had complaints about finances, he said. After the party we checked, and found irregularities. Pamela spent thousands on personal use. The room erupted. Walter Brooks, who'd given me the receipts, stood. She lied to us, he shouted. Time to dissolve the HOA. Applause roared. I froze. Dissolve the HOA. After years of Pamela using it to rule Sunview Meadows, I looked at Clara, who smiled. You did it, Ethan, she whispered. Not just revenge, you changed the neighborhood. Days later, the water company restored my line. I stood in the garden, hearing water trickle, feeling alive again. But the tomatoes and daisies were dead. I picked up a dried daisy, heart heavy. Sorry, Ann, I whispered, thinking of my wife. But then I looked around. Neighbors waved, no longer afraid. Next door buzzed with posts about Pamela selling her house, fleeing Sunview Meadows, before lawsuits. Videos of her flooded party went viral, with comments dubbing her sewer queen. I met Nate at the small park. Told you, he grinned. Pamela's done, I nodded, but didn't laugh like him. I'd won, but at the cost of my beloved garden. Regrets? Nate asked, reading my mind. None, I said, voice firm. She had it coming. But back home, I saw Lily pass by, head down. I wanted to say something, but she was gone. I stood there, knowing I did right, but feeling a twinge of guilt. I sat on the porch, sipping coffee, gazing at my backyard garden, under Arizona's sun. The beds were just dry grass now, but I'd planted new tomatoes, set a small daisy patch in the corner, a promise to my wife, I wouldn't give up. Sunview Meadows felt strangely quiet. No HOA fines, no Pamela Whitaker's judging stares. She'd left, sold her house quietly, after the wastewater fiasco and embezzlement scandal. For the first time in years, I felt truly free. I looked down the street, where neighbors chatted openly. No more follow the rules signs, no tense meetings. The HOA dissolved last week's vote, thanks to Clara Nguyen and Walter Brooks, demanding transparency. Pamela, once the neighborhood's queen, was now a punchline on Nextdoor. Sewer Queen, that nickname made me chuckle every time. A familiar truck pulled up. Nate Rivera parked, holding 2 cold beers. Clara joined, beaming. Hey, neighborhood hero, Nate called, winking. How's the garden? Coming back, I replied, pointing to the daisies. But it's hard to forget the cost. I recalled the waterless days, when tomatoes and daisies died because of Pamela. But looking at Nate, Clara, I knew I had no regrets. Clara sat, handing me a paper. New park lease agreement, she said. No HOA funds needed. Neighbors pitched in. Pamela would lose it if she knew. I laughed hard. She's probably fuming somewhere, but not here. I cracked a beer, clinked with Nate. Thanks both of you, I said, serious. Without Clara's documents, Nate's pipe help, I'd have lost. Pipe help? Clara asked, eyes narrowing, but her smile showed she guessed. Nate burst out laughing, nearly choking on his beer. Don't ask, Clara, hero secrets. We sat, talking about the neighborhood, how neighbors now mowed freely without fines. I thought of Lily, Pamela's daughter, who I saw leave last week, eyes teary. I still felt bad, but she needed time to escape her mom's shadow. Maybe one day, she'd find peace, like me now. My phone buzzed, a Nextdoor message. Pamela's house officially sold, party to celebrate. I laughed, replying. Bring beer, I'll handle the garden. Nate read over my shoulder, chuckling. What's the next drama, Ethan? No clue, I said, leaning back. But this time, I'm ready. I looked at the daisies, spotting a new bud. Pamela lost, the neighborhood changed, and my garden, mine and my wife's, was alive again. I closed my eyes, breathed deep, savoring the peace. Finally, Sunview Meadows was home. The story of Ethan Caldwell and Pamela Whitaker in Sunview Meadows reflects a very real slice of life in the U.S. today, especially in suburban neighborhoods controlled by homeowners associations (HOAs). Details like Pamela cutting Ethan's water to enforce petty rules or embezzling HOA funds for personal gain highlight common issues in American society: abuse of power, injustice in small communities, and the fight to protect personal rights. Ethan's garden, tended in memory of his wife, symbolizes values many Americans hold dear: privacy, family memories, and freedom in one's own space. Ethan's bold act of rerouting wastewater to Pamela's house, though extreme, mirrors the breaking point of those pushed too far by unfairness, like how some Americans confront absurd HOA rules via social media or lawsuits. The neighborhood's unity after Pamela's fall, with Clara and Nate backing Ethan, shows the power of community when standing against abuse. Ethan's story teaches us that in American life, defending personal rights demands both patience and courage, but also responsibility. When Ethan faced Pamela, he didn't just fight over water, he fought for his garden, a symbol of his wife's memory, under threat. This reminds us to identify what we value: home, family, freedom before acting. However, Ethan's extreme move, like rigging the wastewater pipe, though satisfying, risked legal trouble, showing that impulsive revenge can backfire. Instead, Clara's legal knowledge aiding Ethan offers a practical lesson. Knowing your rights through local rules or state laws can be a powerful weapon. For instance, in the U.S., you can request HOA financial reports or file complaints with oversight agencies if you face unfairness. Ethan, Nate, and Clara's teamwork also underscores community's importance. Finding allies, like neighbors or next-door groups, can strengthen your fight. Finally, the neighborhood dissolving the HOA proves that sometimes changing the system, though tough, is the only way to restore fairness. In real life, when facing abuse from HOAs, workplaces, or communities, persist in gathering evidence, build alliances, and act strategically. Like Ethan, you might lose a few daisies along the way, but with resolve and support, peace will return. Subscribe to the channel to follow Ethan's journey defending his garden and the drama of Sunview Meadows. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video with more surprises.